Don't get in the car. Your driver has a gun." Lila Navarro said it calmly, eyes on the navy silk tie. She straightened at Damon Kincaid's collar, fingers unnervingly steady. He went rigid. She smoothed the tie once more, gave the slightest nod. Her part was done. The message was delivered. Damon didn't shout or question. "Cancel the car," he said evenly, "and get Ethan on the line, now." The junior assistant near the staircase froze. "You heard me," Damon added, already turning for his study. After 2 steps, he paused, glanced back. "Lila, upstairs, my office." Her heart was already hammering by the time she followed. Barely an hour earlier, she'd been pushing her cleaning cart along the west corridor, moving quietly, the way 6 months in this house had taught her. Silence kept you invisible. Being invisible kept you safe. That was when she'd seen Rocco. The driver wasn't supposed to be on the private floors, especially not at 6:10 a.m. Lila slowed, instincts sharpening. Rocco stood outside Damon Kincaid's bedroom, glancing over his shoulder before slipping inside. The door didn't latch. First came confusion, then fear. She waited, listened. Drawers opened, metal shifted, hurried movements instead of careful, tidy ones. Her chest tightened. Damon was obsessive about order. No one entered his room without permission. Not staff, not security, not family. She should have turned around. Instead, she edged closer. A loose floorboard creaked, louder than it should have. The noise inside stopped. A breath later, the door flew open. Rocco loomed over her, eyes razor-sharp, anger already carved into his face. Up close, she noticed the tight jaw, the bulge under his jacket. His right hand hovered near his waist. "What the hell are you doing up here?" he snapped. I'm just cleaning," Lila answered quickly, keeping her voice low. "Mr. Kincaid's schedule. Don't lie to me," he hissed. "You people always think you're invisible, sneaking where you don't belong." The phrase, "you people," landed exactly where he wanted. Before she could step back, Rocco shoved her. Her shoulder slammed the wall, pain ripping down her arm. Her cart toppled, bottles and cloths clattering across marble. Rocco crouched, his face inches from hers. "You saw nothing," he said. "You say anything, you'll regret ever stepping into this house." Lila forced fear into her expression, nodded, submission in her posture, obedience in her eyes. He straightened, adjusted his jacket with unnatural precision, and walked past without another word. She stayed on the floor a full minute after he disappeared, breathing shallow, replaying every movement. The sound of metal, the hallway check, the weight under his coat, a gun. When Damon came downstairs at 8:12 a.m., punctual as always, Lila had made up her mind. She wouldn't confront Rocco or make a formal report. In houses like this, accusations from people like her had a way of evaporating. But she could warn Damon. When he paused at the foyer mirror, she stepped forward, hands trembling just enough to pass his nerves. "Sir, your tie," she murmured. He let her touch it, distracted, already thinking of markets and meetings, numbers he bent without effort. She leaned in, lips barely moving. "Don't go. Your driver is armed." Now, in his study, Damon closed the door. "Start from the top," he said. Lila did, plainly, no dramatics. She described Rocco entering the bedroom, the rifled drawers, the shove, the threat. No embellishment. She didn't need any. Damon listened, expression darkening with calculation, not rage. When she finished, he stayed silent for several seconds. "You're certain?" he asked. "Yes." Another pause. You understand what you're accusing him of? Yes. And you still chose to warn me? Yes. Something settled behind his eyes. He nodded once. A knock. Ethan, head of security, stepped in, already tense. Sir, we found a concealed firearm under the driver's seat, unregistered. Rocco's carrying another on his person. He's in custody. Damon exhaled slowly. Good. Ethan's gaze flicked toward Lila. Damon followed it. She just saved my life, he said. Ethan's expression shifted. First surprise, then understanding, finally respect. He left them alone. Damon turned back to Lila. You shouldn't have had to handle that, he said. What he did earlier, I'm fine, she answered, though her shoulder throbbed. No, he replied quietly. You're not, and apparently neither is this house. He studied her as if really seeing her for the first time, not as background staff, but as someone who noticed. I want you with me today. With you, in Manhattan, in a meeting. She hesitated. Sir, I clean rooms. That's my job. You watched a man prepare to kill me and stopped him without being seen. That's judgment, not housekeeping. Lila met his eyes. For the first time since slamming into the wall that morning, she felt something other than fear. Resolve! All right, she said, but if I come, I tell you what I see, even if you don't like it. One corner of his mouth lifted. Deal! As she left the study, Lila understood something had shifted, quietly, dangerously. She was no longer invisible, and once someone like her was seen, there was no slipping back into the shadows again. The black SUV idled in the driveway, engine a low growl beneath the December wind. Lila stood beside Damon on the steps, no longer in a maid's uniform, but in a slate gray coat borrowed from his stylist. It fit better than she expected. Her hair was pinned back, neat and sharp. She looked like she belonged. She didn't feel like it. Damon adjusted his cuff, glanced sideways. Ready? As I'll ever be, she answered. The drive toward Manhattan started in heavy silence. A different driver, vetted and armed, handled the wheel. Ethan sat up front, working on a secure tablet. Lila sat beside Damon in the back, heart thudding harder with every mile toward the city. She'd never been this close to real power before. Not just money, but the kind that rewrote contracts and nudged markets with a nod. Now, she sat beside the man who wielded it because he believed she'd seen something he'd missed. What exactly are we walking into? She asked softly. Damon didn't look over. A negotiation. 3 firms want to merge into one giant financial entity. I'm supposed to bless it. One of them, Helix Dynamics, had someone try to kill me yesterday. Lila stiffened. You think it's connected to Rocco? Nothing happens in isolation, he said. They've pushed this deal for months. I kept asking questions they don't like answered, so why go today? He smiled, humorless. Sometimes showing up is the warning. Skyscrapers rose around them, glass and stone catching a colder slice of sky the higher they climbed. This wasn't her world, but she'd been invited into it, for now. The SUV pulled into a discreet entrance beneath a Park Avenue high-rise. Security greeted them, faces Damon knew. No reporters, no cameras, just business. In the private elevator, he leaned closer. If anything feels off in that room, tell me, he murmured. Don't second-guess it. I won't, she said. He studied her, then nodded. The boardroom on the 45th floor looked like a curated museum piece. Polished walnut table, custom leather chairs, abstract art worth more than houses. Lila ignored the decor and watched the men already seated. 7 of them. Older, white, expensive. They rose when Damon entered. Some smiled, some didn't bother. "Gentlemen," Damon said neutrally, "let's begin." Introductions were quick. Lila sat just behind him, slightly to his left. No one asked who she was. They assumed assistant, maybe note-taker. Good. Helix Dynamics was represented by Leonard Bryce, a man who radiated practiced authority. He smiled too wide, gestured too much, called Damon "my friend" 3 times in 5 minutes. Lila watched his hands, constantly fidgeting, fussing with pen and cuff. His voice didn't match his body language. When Damon mentioned the Kincaid Foundation's Ethics Committee, Leonard's blinking sped up, his jaw tightening for half a heartbeat before the smile returned. It was like watching a mask slip and snap back. "He's lying," Lila murmured. Damon didn't turn, but his fingers tapped once against the table, his subtle acknowledgement. 10 minutes later, when voting rights came up, Leonard tried to steer them toward a streamlined ownership model. Damon cut in. "Transparency, Leonard," he said. Coolly. "That's the model I'm interested in." The room went still for a beat, too long. Leonard laughed. "Thin." "Of course, no secrets here." Lila leaned closer to Damon. "His assistant keeps checking his watch," she whispered. "That briefcase hasn't left his hand. I think he's recording." Damon nodded once, then addressed the room. "Before we continue, I'll need to sweep this space. Standard protocol after recent events." It wasn't standard. Everyone knew it. No one objected. Damon signaled. Ethan entered within seconds carrying a compact detector. Minutes later, he found a transmitter fixed beneath the conference table, right under Leonard's seat. Leonard blanched. The others went quiet. Damon rose slowly, voice soft but lethal. "Anyone who thinks they can manipulate this process by planting devices in my meetings will find themselves not just removed from this deal, but blacklisted from every circle I influence. You'll be out by quarter's end." No one spoke. Damon turned to Lila. "Thank you," he said, loud enough for the entire room. They left without another word. In the elevator, Lila finally breathed. Damon looked at her. That was impressive. "I just watched," she said. "No," he replied. "You saw." Outside, the city kept moving. Cars, crowds, headlines scrolling by. But Lila understood something had changed. She wasn't just witnessing power anymore. She was on the board, however small her square. And the stakes had just climbed. The SUV slid through Midtown under a sky fading to steel gray. Traffic pulsed like something alive, indifferent to billion-dollar battles behind glass. Inside, silence thickened again, heavy with everything that nearly happened. Lila sat beside Damon, hands folded. Her borrowed coat still held a stranger's cologne, now threaded with adrenaline. She hadn't expected public gratitude like that. "I shouldn't have spoken aloud," she said finally, watching buildings blur past. "You were right," Damon answered instantly. "If you hadn't, I'd still be negotiating with a man trying to bury me." She hesitated. "They'll know it was me." "They already knew you weren't just the help the second you walked into that room," he said. "Now they'll know better than to underestimate you." Lila eyed him. "I'm not looking to collect enemies." Damon met her gaze. "You just made powerful ones, Lila. That isn't always a bad thing." The car pulled into Kincaid Holdings' underground garage. The tower above them was glass and steel, shaped into a blade over Park Avenue. Inside, the lobby hummed with suits, security checkpoints, polished floors, swallowing footsteps. In the executive elevator, Damon spoke without turning. "I want you to meet someone." "Nolan Pierce, head of compliance. I've trusted him for years. He's thorough and doesn't rattle. I want him to hear what you noticed today." Lila frowned. "I'm not sure I can explain it. It wasn't evidence, just observation." "Then tell it how you saw it," Damon said, pressing a button. "If he's worth his title, he'll understand." They exited on the 39th floor, decor subdued, deep grays, quiet art, the kind of restrained wealth old money prefers. Nolan already waited, tall, wiry, glasses that suggested nothing escaped him. "Mr. Kincaid," he greeted, then turned to Lila. "And you must be the sharp-eyed housekeeper who wrecked Leonard Bryce's week." Lila stiffened, unsure. "Relax," Nolan said, gesturing to a chair. "I've begged Damon for years to fire half the board and replace them with women like you." Damon chuckled. "She's taken, unfortunately." Over the next 15 minutes, Lila retold everything. The subtle shifts in Leonard's tone, the assistant's watch, the briefcase. Nolan didn't interrupt once. When she finished, he leaned back, nodding. "You've got a clean eye. No training," she said. "Just a lifetime watching people who like hurting others. My dad taught me." Nolan glanced at Damon, then back at her. "Keep trusting that instinct. It's carried you farther than most certificates would." When they were alone again, Damon led her to his office, a space more personal than the rest. Photos of his late wife, Elena, lined a shelf, frames carefully arranged. A dog-eared copy of The Art of War rested near a hand-blown glass sculpture catching what little winter light managed to break through the clouds. "You handled yourself well today," he said, sitting. "I barely slept deciding whether to say anything," Lila admitted. "I kept thinking maybe I imagined it, or I was projecting." Damon shook his head. "Your hesitation saved us both. The best instincts always feel uncertain right before they're proven right." Lila drifted toward the bookshelf, tracing unfamiliar spines. Economics, military strategy, biographies of magnates and revolutionaries. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Why bring me into this at all? You could have thanked me, cut a generous check, and never spoken to me again." Damon leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Most people in my world are blind. Or worse, they see and choose to look away. You didn't." "I didn't think I had a choice," she said. "Everyone has a choice," he replied. "Most choose comfort. You chose risk." Silence stretched between them. Then Damon added, "And I trust you." Lila turned, startled. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stood, straightening his jacket. "Come, there's something else you should see." They rode back to the underground level. He led her down a secured corridor to a steel door. Damon entered a code. The panel slid open. Inside, a private surveillance room glowed, screens showing every angle of the estate, his offices, several vehicles. One replayed that morning. Rocco entering the hallway. Rocco checking both directions. Rocco slipping into Damon's room. Another camera showed Lila rounding the corner. Damon didn't speak, just let her watch. "We're not finished with Helix dynamics," he said at last. "Rocco was one piece, not the whole game." He turned toward her. "If you stay involved, you'll be watched, followed, maybe threatened. Are you ready for that?" Lila froze the frame where Rocco shoved her, then met Damon's gaze. "I've been followed before, threatened too. No one ever asked me to push back until now." Damon nodded slowly. "Then we move forward." As they left, a thought flickered through her. She wasn't afraid of where she was heading. She was afraid of what it might awaken, the part of her that wanted to change more than one powerful man's fate. The Kincaid estate felt different that night. Security had doubled, footsteps heavier, as though the walls themselves listened. Lila sensed it the moment she stepped inside after returning from Manhattan. Chandeliers still glowed soft gold, Persian rugs still aligned perfectly, but the house no longer felt like shelter. It felt like a place bracing for impact. She moved through the service corridor toward her quarters, shoulder aching beneath her coat. The earlier shove replayed in her muscles more than memory, a dull reminder that seeing too much always charged a price. Her room was small, spotless, practical. A narrow bed, a metal desk, a window overlooking hedges along the east edge of the property. She sat without turning on the light, letting darkness collect around her. For the first time all day, she let herself think clearly. I could have stayed invisible. The thought held no regret, only weight. Invisibility had been her armor for most of her 36 years. After her father died, after her mother folded grief into silence, after she learned certain rooms weren't for her voice. Now that armor had cracked, a knock sounded on her door. She tensed, rose. "Yes?" "It's me," came Damon's voice. She opened halfway, surprised. He stood there without his jacket, sleeves rolled, looking less like a mogul, more like a restless man. "Hope I'm not intruding," he said. "No," she replied quickly, stepping aside. "Come in." He glanced around the spare room, saying nothing about its simplicity. "You don't have to stay here tonight," he said. "Not if you'd rather not." Lila frowned. "Where would I go?" "There's a guest room on the 3rd floor, larger, closer to security." She heard what he wasn't saying. Rocco knew where she slept. Others might too. "I'll stay," she decided. "Running just makes the noise louder." Damon studied her, then nodded. "All right." He hesitated. "I wanted to check on you. About this morning." "I'm fine," she replied automatically. He raised a brow. She sighed. "I've had worse days," she corrected. That earned a humorless half-smile. "Not exactly comforting," he said, leaning against the desk. "My wife used to say, power reveals itself not when people speak, but when they assume they don't need to." Lila looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Rocco assumed you didn't matter. Leonard assumed no one would question him. Helix assumed I'd play along because it was easier." His jaw tightened. "They all counted on silence, and they were wrong. Because of you," he added softly. The words hung heavy between them. Lila crossed her arms. "You keep saying that like it's a compliment. People with money don't like getting exposed." "No," Damon agreed, "they don't. Which is why I need to ask you something carefully." She met his eyes. "Ask. I want you to stay, not as staff." He paused. "As part of my inner circle." Her breath caught. "That's not how this works," she said. "I don't have the background, the polished resume." "You have perspective," he replied. "That's what this place lacks." She thought of the boardroom, Leonard's restless hands, Rocco's sneer when he said, "You people." "And what's the cost?" she asked. Damon didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice dropped. "Visibility." She nodded, slowly. At least it was honest. "There'll be resistance," he continued. "People who think you don't belong, people who'll test you." "They already do," she said. He gave a faint, crooked smile. "Then you'll manage." Silence settled again. Less tense, more contemplative. "I saw the footage," she said quietly. He stiffened. "The surveillance." Yeah. She didn't explain. She didn't need to. They both knew which moment. I should have intervened sooner, he said. You couldn't, she replied. You weren't there. That's never stopped me before, he muttered. She studied him, not as her employer, not as the billionaire on magazine covers, but as a man wrestling with the limits of control. You can't protect everyone all the time, she said. I know, he answered, but I can try. A brief smile tugged at her mouth, gone quickly. Sounds exhausting. It is. He straightened, checking his watch. Tomorrow morning, Ethan walks you through security protocols. Phones, routes, emergency procedures, he continued. She nodded. And after that, you'll sit in on another meeting, smaller, less formal. I want to see how you read a room when the danger isn't obvious. And if I sense something wrong, then you say it, he replied. Even if it costs me. She almost asked, even if it costs me? Instead, she said, all right. Damon reached for the door, then paused. Lila, yes? Thank you. Not just for today, for choosing not to look away. After he left, she closed the door, leaning against it, pulse racing from something that wasn't fear. She thought of her father, and the night he'd said the world rarely rewarded fairness. It rewarded those who persisted, who pushed sideways when justice refused to arrive straight on. It came through people who refused to stay quiet. She lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she didn't feel small. She felt visible. 45 a.m. Lila stood in Kincaid Holdings' private security wing, clutching a black coffee, trying to keep her nerves off her face. She hadn't truly slept. Every creak and shifting shadow kept her alert. Now, under corporate white lighting, she was surrounded by men and women in tailored suits and earpieces, people trained to spot trouble before it reached the driveway. She wasn't like them, and yet she was here anyway. Ethan entered, sharp as always. Measured stride, pressed shirt, not a wrinkle in sight. He nodded at her, gestured toward a table stacked with folders and compact devices. We're updating your clearance, he said. You'll have temporary level credentials. No floor access without escort, but you're officially on the list. I didn't realize I was being added, she said. You're not being added, Ethan replied. You're being noticed. She said nothing. He handed her a folder with her name, printed boldly on top. Read it, twice, he said. Emergency codes, evacuation routes, how to spot surveillance sweeps, internal communication protocols. His tone stayed flat. You'll also memorize 3 safe houses in the city. You don't go home unless we say it's safe. Lila stared at the folder. You're preparing for war, she said. Ethan gave her a level look. A man tried to shoot Damon Kincaid. That isn't business. That's a message, which means someone is already planning the sequel. She nodded slowly. And me. You're now a variable in somebody's threat model. They'll want to know who you are, what you saw, how close you've gotten to Kincaid, Ethan said. So you need to decide something. What's that? Lila asked. If you're going to play this game, you can't play halfway. Lila met his eyes. I've never done anything halfway in my life. Ethan studied her, then offered something almost like approval. Good, let's start. By 9, she was back in the executive wing. Her new ID badge hung under her coat, hidden from casual view. She moved through the quiet corridors like a shadow with weight. Staff glanced at her differently now, curious, confused, wary. She passed a glass-walled office where Damon spoke with Nolan and a woman she didn't recognize. Mid-50s, elegant, streaks of gray through swept-back hair, a faint scar beneath one ear. "That's Harper Vale," Ethan's voice said at her shoulder. She turned. He'd changed into a darker suit. CIA, she guessed. "Close," he said. "Former counterintelligence, now an independent consultant. Damon brought her in after the board meeting, quietly." Lila frowned. "He thinks there's more?" "He knows there is," Ethan replied. The office door opened. Damon stepped out, saw Lila instantly, and motioned her in. Inside, Harper turned slowly. Her eyes were icy blue, precise. She studied Lila in one measured sweep. "So, you're the one who spotted what everyone else missed," Harper said. Lila held her gaze. "I just paid attention." "Good," Harper answered. "That's where this line of work always starts." Damon motioned for them to sit. "We're tracking more than a rogue driver or pushy firm," he said. "There's chatter from our international offices, Audi data pulls, duplicate logins, and a breach in Los Angeles yesterday." He handed Lila a tablet with frozen surveillance footage. A grainy image of a man entering a building at 3 a.m., face obscured. "Logistics partner out west," Damon explained. "Someone accessed their database using a temporary code tied to this office. Only 6 people have that code." "You think one of them leaked it?" Lila asked. Harper leaned forward. "We think someone's already inside our walls," she said. "We just don't know who yet." The room fell quiet. Damon broke it. "Which brings us to you, Lila." She straightened. "Today you'll shadow 2 meetings," he said. "One with legal, one with facilities. On paper, you're observing. In reality, you're watching everyone. Expressions, evasions, tells." Lila's stomach tightened. "You think someone there's involved?" "I think the danger didn't start with the man holding the gun," Damon said. "It started with whoever gave him a reason to pull the trigger." He stood. The others followed. In the hallway, he lingered beside her. "Most people imagine betrayal as a gunshot," he said. "But usually it begins with a quiet favor, a small compromise, one unlocked door." Lila looked up at him. "And if I find that door, then we lock it or burn the building," he answered. The first meeting, with legal, was almost painfully ordinary. Attorneys in stiff suits discussed non-disclosure clauses, pending litigation, merger language. Lila sat near the back, scanning faces for nerves or hidden fear. Nothing. Just polished words and paper. The second meeting felt different. Facilities and operations, mid-level directors, looser atmosphere, more side comments. One man, Craig Lawson, talked too much. He laughed a beat too long at Damon's jokes, corrected a junior staffer with unnecessary sharpness. It wasn't until he presented a slide of upcoming renovations that Lila saw it. A vendor name. "Wait," she said, interrupting. "This contractor, Greystone Systems, you said they're handling electrical upgrades?" Craig nodded. "Yeah, good rates. I vetted them myself." Lila frowned. "I saw that name on a service van outside the estate last week. No one mentioned a scheduled visit." Craig blinked. "Probably a site survey," he said. "I cleared it. Thought I'd flag it." Damon leaned forward. "Without security authorization?" he asked, voice cooling. Craig shifted. "It was last minute. I approved it directly. Must have slipped my mind to notify." Harper was already dialing. Craig began to sweat. Lila sat still, pulse spiking. There it was, a door. Later, Craig sat at the far end of a glass conference table, blinking under Damon's silence. The once busy room felt like a courtroom now, and Craig was alone at the witness stand. Lila watched his posture fold inward. His shoulders, relaxed before, hunched. Hands that had gestured confidently now drummed nervously on his closed laptop. He knew he'd slipped. Damon didn't speak yet. He didn't need to. Harper stood beside him, phone pressed to her ear. "Full workup," she said. "Greystone Systems, all contracts, all recent logins. Cross-check site access versus badge records." She ended the call, turned to Craig. "How long have they been on retainer?" Craig cleared his throat. "Just under 2 months, small job, routine." "And yet they entered the estate without security clearance," Harper said. "I assumed it was handled," Craig said. "You assumed wrong." Damon cut in, voice calm and far more dangerous. "You bypassed protocol. You opened my home to an outside vendor unsupervised. You didn't log their arrival. That's more than carelessness." Craig flushed. "It wasn't malicious. I was just trying to speed up a minor contract. These merger meetings consumed my schedule." "Speed up or conceal?" Lila asked suddenly. Every head turned. She hadn't meant to speak aloud, but the words landed anyway, sharp and true. "Excuse me," Craig snapped. "You've been here years," she continued. "You know Damon doesn't approve vendors without layers of review. Yet you push this through quietly. Their unscheduled appearance lines up with someone trying to kill him." "That's a stretch," Craig said, voice rising. "She's not even—" Damon stood. "She's exactly what you think she isn't," he said. "And you'd be smart to listen." Craig paled, realizing he'd lost his footing. Damon turned to Harper. "I want a forensic sweep of Craig's communications, calls, messages, server access. Get whatever warrants you need. If he's innocent, we clear him. If he's not—" Harper nodded, already typing. Craig looked around, seeing no alley. "This is insane," he protested. "I've been loyal to Kincaid Holdings 15 years. "Then you should have remembered we value integrity," Damon said. No raised voice, no theatrics, just a scalpel-edged tone. "Ethan will escort you to a holding office," Harper added, "until this is resolved." Craig rose slowly, breathing shallow. "You're making a mistake." "No," Damon replied. "You did." The meeting dissolved quietly. Lila followed Damon and Harper back to his office. Silence hung thick. Harper folded her arms. "Even if Craig's clean, he created a window," she said. "We'll trace whoever climbed through it. That'll take time." Damon looked to Lila. "Thoughts?" She hesitated. "He's hiding something," she said. "I just don't know if it's our something, which means we're still blind." Damon turned toward the window, staring at the city as if it might answer. Lila studied him, then reached into her coat. "Can I show you something?" she asked. He turned. She unfolded a small slip of paper, setting it on the desk. "Found this in the hallway outside your bedroom yesterday, wedged behind the baseboard. It wasn't there the day before." Damon opened it. Inside, a name, a date, coordinates. Harper leaned in. "Catskill site," she said. "Industrial. Old power grid infrastructure. Remote." Damon looked to Lila. "You sure this ties in?" "I don't know," she said. "But Rocco walked that hallway hours before I caught him in your room. He could have dropped it." Damon stared at the paper several seconds, then grabbed the phone. "Ethan, prep the helicopter. Wheels up in 30 minutes. Harper arched a brow. "You're going personally." Damon nodded. "If someone's leaving breadcrumbs, I'd rather see where they end." He turned to Lila. You're coming too." Her eyes widened. "Me? You've been right so far," he said. "I trust your eyes more than most." Her pulse kicked. "Okay," she said quietly. The helicopter ride was fast and punishing, blades chopping through icy air as they flew north. The Hudson unfurled below like a black ribbon, mountains rising in jagged silhouettes along the horizon. Lila sat beside Damon, coat zipped to her chin, headset snug against her ears. She'd never flown like this, danger wrapped in luxury. Every beat of the blades reminded her she'd stepped far past the life she knew. The facility emerged 20 minutes later. An abandoned power station crouched in frozen woods, windows dark. No lights, no movement, yet something felt wrong. The pilot circled once, hovering low. "Looks clear," he said. "Put us down." Damon glanced at Lila. She scanned the ground. On the far side of the structure, tire tracks carved fresh lines through snow, leading toward a half-hidden loading dock. "There," she pointed. "Someone's been here recently." Damon gave the order. The chopper descended. They approached with 2 of Damon's private guards. The stillness deepened. No birds, barely wind. Inside, beyond a rusted door, the building's guts were frigid and humming. Not empty. Servers lined a chamber, lights blinking, fans whispering. Screens displayed live camera feeds, not just of the estate, but of Damon's bedroom, his office, and Lila herself. Hundreds of stills framed her from different angles. Harper exhaled. "My God!" Lila stared, stunned by her own face everywhere. Every step she'd taken for weeks, recorded and catalogued. She grabbed Damon's arm. "They're not only after you," she said. "They're tracking me too." Damon stood perfectly still in the blue flicker, lines on his face sharpened. Behind him, Harper was already moving along the racks, murmuring into her encrypted phone. The guards swept the perimeter. Weapons ready. Lila couldn't look away from a feed showing her asleep. The camera angle was wrong, too high, too intrusive. "This isn't from the estate system," she whispered. "They installed something inside the house," Harper said grimly. Damon stepped closer to the monitors. "We rebuilt security 6 months ago. Closed network, no cloud. These feeds aren't ours." "They wired around you," Harper said. "Parallel infrastructure." Lila swallowed. "Can they hear us right now?" Harper checked a handheld scanner. "Not from here. I killed the signal. But whoever runs this has been watching long enough to know everything." Damon's gaze landed on a monitor showing his son's room. Empty, peaceful, exposed. "How long has this operation been running?" he asked. Harper squinted at a timestamp. "This feed dates 6 weeks back. Others go further, months, maybe longer." Damon's hands clenched, and we had no idea. "We didn't look," Lila said, voice sharper than she intended. He met her eyes. She didn't flinch. "No," he agreed quietly. "We didn't." An hour later, Harper's tech team arrived. Damon and Lila waited in the grounded helicopter, rotors idle over frost-bitten gravel. Thick clouds gathered overhead, threatening. "Snow!" Lila sat in the co-pilot seat, fingers wrapped around a thermos a guard had handed her, steam warming her face. She hadn't spoken for several minutes. "Talk to me," Damon said, leaning closer. She stared ahead. "They were watching me before the boardroom," she said. He didn't deny it. Lila shook her head. "This stopped being about you." "No," Damon said. "It didn't. It expanded." She turned toward him. "Then who's really under the microscope?" Damon stared out the windshield, silence stretching. "My son," he said finally. "And you." Lila's stomach twisted. "Why me?" "Because you're an anomaly," he said. "You weren't meant to get close. You weren't supposed to see what you saw. Now you're the variable they can't predict. Then they're miscalculating," she replied. He looked back at her. "Why?" "Because I'm not the one who gets watched," she said quietly. "I'm the one who watches back." Back at the estate, everything felt altered. Guards at every entrance, staff quietly re-vetted, interviews, background checks, system audits on repeat. Lila didn't return to her old room. Damon assigned her a secure suite near his own, closer to the estate's core. Too much space, too much luxury, but she didn't argue. That night, she sat by the fireplace, jazz low. Her body ached. Her mind wouldn't settle. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Damon again. "Got a minute?" he asked. She nodded, letting him in. He didn't sit, just stood near the mantel, hands in his pockets. "I can't trust anyone right now," he said. "My coup's panicking, the board's splintering, and Harper believes the surveillance system was funded from inside." Lila frowned. "You think it's a board member?" "No," he said. "I think it's worse." He handed her a thin folder. Inside were photos of Rocco, not just at the estate, but 2 years earlier beside a different employer, a politician who died under suspicious circumstances. "Rocco was placed," Damon said. "He's been a plant before. He was never just a driver. Whoever put him there plays the long game." Lila's voice dropped. "To do what?" "To own me," Damon said. He looked out at the frozen garden. "I've built companies, alliances, influence, but building isn't protection. No cameras, just his people," Harper said. "We go in quiet." Damon glanced at Lila. "You still sure?" She nodded. "If I run now, I'll always wonder who's watching." They reached the anonymous building. No sign, no visible guards, just a gray steel door humming with power behind stone walls. Inside, the air smelled like dust, toner, and old contracts. Their footsteps echoed up 2 flights of stairs. At the landing, Harper clipped a wire to Damon's shirt. "We record. We don't instigate. If he's alone, you talk. If he's armed, we pivot." Damon straightened his collar and opened the door. Behind a massive oak desk sat Elias Kane. Ordinary at first glance, slick silver hair, navy suit, calm fingers resting on a stack of papers. No bodyguards, no visible weapons. "I figured you'd arrive sooner," Kane said, voice smooth as polished stone. Damon stepped closer. "You've been crawling through my life." "No," Kane replied. "I've been trimming your weaknesses. Sentimentality, vulnerable security, a housekeeper who thinks she's a detective." Lila's shoulders tightened. Kane's gaze shifted to her. "You, the disturbance." "She's the reckoning," Damon answered. Kane smirked. "I could end you both with one call." Lila moved in. "And we can drag every rotten system you've twisted into daylight." Kane laughed softly. "You really think justice fits in a folder?" "No," she said, closer still. "It lives in people who stop hiding." For a heartbeat, Kane's composure slipped. Damon set a small USB drive on the desk. "Everything you've built, copied, mirrored, sent to 3 major outlets and a federal task force. This conversation is a courtesy." Kane's fingers twitched. "You won't make it hold." Lila smiled. "Then I'll make it loud." When they stepped back onto the sidewalk, the air felt brittle, charged. Snow fell in soft, relentless sheets over black hoods. The street was unnaturally quiet for Manhattan, like the city paused to eavesdrop. Neither of them spoke. Their breath fogged the air as they crossed to the waiting SUV, where Harper sat surrounded by glowing screens. "Well?" she asked as the doors shut. "He flinched," Damon said. "Didn't crack, but the edges showed." "He knows we've boxed him in," Lila added. "And he knows his protection still holds, for now." Harper flicked through feeds. Packets with the Ledger, the Times, and a federal oversight unit that still remembers its spine. Confirmations from all three. Clock just started. "How soon does he hit back?" Lila asked. "Could be hours," Harper said. "But before sunrise, I'd bet on a lawsuit, a smear campaign, or a surprise audit landing on your doorstep." Damon snorted. "Let him swing." Back at the estate, things felt eerily calm. House staff had the weekend off, replaced by vetted contractors and Damon's private security. Even the chef was temporary, fingerprinted, background checked. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was operating procedure. Lila stared into untouched tea in the kitchen. The adrenaline from facing Kane had drained, leaving something colder behind: doubt. He'd looked her dead in the eye and brushed her off like lint, yet his reaction screamed a man who still expected to win. Ethan walked in carrying a folder. "Figured you'd want this." She flipped through profiles, assets, shell firms. At the back sat a sealed envelope with only her name scrawled across it. Lila froze. "What's this?" Ethan shrugged. "Came anonymously. Postmarked this morning. No prints, no digital trail. It cleared talk screens and hardware sweeps." Lila tore it open. Inside, a single grainy photo. Her leaving her old apartment weeks before meeting Damon. Shot from above, probably a rooftop. In the blurred corner stood her younger brother, Marcus. Lila's lungs stuttered. On the back, in looping script, "Truth has a price. We'll collect." Her knees gave out. She hit a chair. The photograph shook between her fingers. Damon arrived seconds later, reading the danger in the room instantly. She passed him the picture. He studied it quietly. "They're going after personal targets," he said. "Means we actually hurt him." "Marcus doesn't do anything shady," Lila said. "He teaches middle school in Baltimore. This is intimidation, nothing else." Damon nodded. "And it's working," she scowled. "You want me to back away? I want you aware of the stakes. Men like Kane don't play fair," Damon continued. "They don't wait for subpoenas. They break you, then bury the pieces in bureaucracy." Lila rose, voice steady. "Then we don't let him enjoy the show." The next morning, the first headline hit: exclusive. Financier Elias Kane tied to covert surveillance, network, and espionage shell firms. News tickers spin, talk shows cut to emergency panels, and Kane's rarely photographed face filled every screen. In the estate's media room, Damon turned on the wall of monitors. "The Ledger's leading," he said. Harper's leak landed. Lila perched on the couch edge, watching analysts scramble. "He's already spinning," she muttered. A commentator read Kane's official statement. A coordinated smear, backed by a vengeful ex-partner and fabricated evidence. "Classic," Damon said. "Dini, attack, stall." "He can't dodge forever," Lila replied. "Not if we keep tightening the noose." Harper appeared in the doorway, waving a USB. "You're going to appreciate this," she said. Intercepted comms from one of Kane's digital cutouts. He's shifting cash from Cayman accounts into a fresh shell company. "New name, same trick," she added. "Gaze whose signature is on the paperwork." Damon leaned forward. "Leonard." "Wrong," Harper said. Vanessa Sloan. Lila straightened. She's back on the board. Harper nodded. We tracked her to a hotel in Jersey. Alias on the room, but facial recognition tagged her. She's not just a link, she's the contingency plan. If Kane falls, she runs the money, Lila said. Or torches everything, Harper replied. Damon was already dialing. We need her talking. Lila rose. Let me go. He paused. Alone, she clarified. She remembers me. She might relax. I want her to face the woman she misjudged. Damon hesitated, then nodded. Ethan and two shadows follow. No solo heroics. Fine, she said. 2 hours later, Lila walked into the lobby of the Meridian Hotel, a wannabe luxury spot pretending not to be mid-range. She wore a trench coat, dark glasses, and composure like armor. Vanessa Sloan sat in the bar nursing amber liquor, reading the Financial Times. Lila approached, sliding into the opposite chair. You don't look like someone hiding. Vanessa glanced up, smirked. You don't look like someone who knows what she's stepped into. I know plenty, Lila said, including who pulls your strings. Vanessa folded the paper. Kane always said you were dangerous. I shrugged it off. I don't anymore, Vanessa added. You should have listened sooner, Lila replied. Vanessa leaned in. You really think truth wins? That a few leaks topple someone like him? No, Lila said. But exposure burns and he hates the light. Vanessa chuckled. Nice line. Keep that for TV. She reached into her purse. Ethan drifted closer from a nearby pillar, hand near his holster. Slowly, he warned. Vanessa froze, then produced a USB drive. This is everything, she said. My insurance if Kane turned on me. Why give it to me? Lila asked. Vanessa's eyes softened, just barely. Because as far as he is concerned, you're already dead, and dead women take real risks. The ride back felt heavier than the bulletproof doors. Lila clutched the drive, cold edges biting her palm. Vanessa's words looped in her head, already dead, unclear if they were warning, threat, or backhanded respect. At the estate, everything buzzed. Damon sat in the security suite with Harper and 2 federal agents who'd appeared unannounced that morning. Lila dropped the USB on the table. She surrendered it, Lila said. Damon studied her. You all right? He asked. Not even close, she answered. But I'm standing. He nodded. That would do. Harper plugged in the drive. Folders spilled across the screen. Transactions, offshore accounts, wiretaps, names, timestamps. Enough to bury Kane repeatedly. One directory glowed like a warning. Kincaid internal. Harper opened it. Surveillance logs, detailed reports, transcripts of private calls, copies of Lila's medical records, even a background file on Marcus. Then another set of files labeled Project Mirror. Harper clicked. Inside, memos mapping a planned corporate coup at Kincaid Holdings. Goal: push Damon out, replace him with a pliable director, then run dirty funds through their clean reputation and health tech ventures, she read. The worst part wasn't the scheme, but the dates. This started 2 years ago, Harper murmured. Before you hired Lila, before Elena died. They hadn't responded to danger. They'd been targeted from the beginning. They counted on me breaking, Damon said that night by his office fireplace, flames painting exhaustion into the lines on his face. They didn't know how, just that grief cracks people. Lila sat opposite, hands around cooling tea. They didn't plan on me, she said quietly. No, Damon agreed. You weren't in their charts. You weren't pre-screened, pre-owned, or predictable. You just walked in and didn't bend. Lila finally sipped the tea, grounding herself. I never expected more than keeping beds made, babies safe, and praying. Paychecks cleared, she said. Damon shook his head. You're not background, Lila. You're the hinge. She blinked. Meaning? Doors don't move unless something solid holds them. By morning, fallout roared. Anchors weren't speculating anymore. They were citing. Vanessa's archive, Harper's releases, whistleblowers from Kane's companies. Kane was tied to sham charities, offshore webs, hired consultants, destabilizing boards across industries. Federal agencies opened investigations. Congress floated hearings. Kane stayed silent. Lila knew better. That quiet was calculated. It won't last. Harper strode into the kitchen, waving another report. Fresh headache, she said. 3 heavyweight digital probes are poking our network. Government-level skills, bought loyalty. Kane's calling favors, she added. Damon walked in as she spoke. Then we stop reacting, he said. Time for offense. Lila lifted a brow. We just detonated his reputation. That was disclosure, Damon said. Offense comes now. Harper slid a folder over. Secondary shell. Elbridge Technologies. Not frozen yet. Holds patents that could change diagnostics. Kane's been siphoning stolen Kincaid research into it. If we seize it first, his future pipeline dies. How? Lila asked. We buy it, Damon said. Quietly, through cutouts. The same trick he played on us. And when he notices, Lila asked. Damon's eyes hardened. Then he'll finally understand losing something he thought untouchable. That evening, Lila visited Eli in the East Wing. He was hunched over a sprawling puzzle, pieces scattered across the carpet. He glanced up, shy smile blooming. I saved the sky for you, he said. She laughed, easing onto the rug, knees complaining. You always leave me the hardest part. You're good at finishing, he shrugged. For a while, the world shrank to cardboard shapes and quiet giggles. Then Eli's face turned serious. Is the bad man gone? He asked. Lila hesitated. Not yet, she said honestly. But we're close. Eli nodded, thoughtful. You're not like other grown-ups. You don't pretend. She smiled. Pretending doesn't scare monsters away. No, he agreed. But people like you do. Lila's throat tightened. She wasn't sure who she'd been before this house. Now she knew. She was the kind who finished what others refused to start. The boardroom felt like a refrigerated chapel. Mahogany table gleamed under sterile light. 10 directors sat stiff-backed, rattled by headlines. Outside, the city shimmered under snow, detached from the storm brewing in here. Damon sat at the head, Lila on one side, Harper on the other. Vanessa's drive rested between them like a live explosive. Its contents were already public. Kincaid Holdings had become shorthand for corporate betrayal. This emergency session, Damon began, voice controlled but cutting, isn't about me. It's about whether this company survives. Kane tried to gut us from within. A director scoffed. You say that like it's finished. What if he retaliates, sues? This kind of fight, it's never clean. Lila leaned forward. It wasn't clean before, she said. You were just oblivious. Another director frowned. With respect, Miss Navarro. No, Damon interrupted. She speaks for me. She's earned that. Silence tightened. Harper tapped a remote. Behind Damon, screens lit. Vanessa in protective custody. Kane's forged filings. shell accounts, diagrams showing how Kincaid had been lined up for collapse. "These aren't theories," Damon said. "They're receipts. This board was compromised. Leonard was a tool. None of you were watching. She was." No one argued. Damon rose. "I'm not resigning. I won't apologize for protecting this place. I am asking for help," he continued, "to rebuild this company into what it pretended to be, transparent, disciplined, ruthless, about safeguarding people, not just profits. If that bothers you, there's the door." No chairs moved. That was enough. Later, in the greenhouse, Lila stood among winter citrus, breathing lemon and cold soil. She'd wanted justice, but hadn't expected how hollow victories sometimes felt. Damon joined her quietly. "The board stayed," he said. "Didn't expect that." Lila didn't look at him. "They weren't loyal to you," she replied. "They were loyal to comfort." Kane shattered that illusion. "Now they're terrified of being exposed next." "That doesn't bother you?" he asked. "What rattles me," she said, finally turning, "is we still don't know his true objective. This wasn't just about you or Kincaid. There's a deeper play." Damon nodded slowly. "We're missing a piece," he agreed. Harper appeared in the doorway, slightly breathless. "We may have found it," she said, handing over a file. This was buried in one of Vanessa's encrypted folders. Looked like just numbers. "Ledger," Harper said. "Payments to anonymous accounts linked to medical centers." Damon frowned. "Hospitals." "Worse," Harper replied. "Psych facilities. One stands out. St. Haldan Psychiatric Center, upstate." Damon's face drained. "That's where Elena stayed, near the end." Lila's chest clenched. "Your wife." Damon nodded. "She checked herself in. I wasn't told for a week." Harper opened the file on a potting bench. Kane's biotech arm funded a research grant there. It never published. Staff quietly replaced. One doctor on that grant also consulted for Elbridge Technologies, she added. Lila swallowed. "They experimented on her," she whispered. Harper hesitated. "I can't prove that yet. But the dates align, and someone kept accessing her files months after she died." Damon sank onto a bench, staring past everything. "They used her," he said, "as leverage, as data." Lila stepped closer. "We don't have to let that be the final line." For the first time, his eyes shone. "No," he said thickly, "we don't." That night, Lila returned to her suite, locking the door behind her. She needed quiet, but found a package sitting on her bed instead. No return address, no markings. She opened it carefully. Inside lay a single tie, the same brand and pattern Rocco had worn the morning he went for Damon. A note was pinned to the silk. "You saved him once. You won't again." Lila went very still. Fear and anger warred in her chest. They were watching again. Only this time she wasn't unarmed. She folded the tie, slipped it into her coat like evidence, then opened her bedside drawer. Her fingers closed around the compact handgun. Damon had insisted she keep it after Rocco, not for decoration, for survival. She checked the magazine, clicked the safety, and holstered it beneath her jacket. She wasn't waiting anymore. Just after midnight, she stepped into the surveillance hub. Servers hummed like a restless heart. Harper sat hunched over, eyes on cascading logs from external IPs. Screens bathed the room in cold light. "You got a gift, too." Lila tosses the tie onto the console. Same theatrics, different threat. Harper glanced at it, then at Lila's expression. "They want you rattled." Lila pulled up a chair. Then let's knock them off balance instead. She held up her phone. This stays between us, she said. I'm going back to St. Halden. Harper's brows jumped. Alone? No, Lila said. But I need to walk through that door. If Elena's records exist, I need eyes on them. That could be a setup, Harper warned. Lila's mouth quirked. Good, I'm counting on that. The next morning, an SUV rolled through St. Halden's front gates. The facility rose against gray clouds, sharp lines, and shuttered windows. Last time I came here, Damon said quietly, Elena barely spoke. She just watched snow slide down the glass. Lila studied him. Was she afraid? She was exhausted, he said, like she was fighting something invisible. I thought it was grief. Now I'm not so sure. They stepped out with Ethan and a plainclothes agent. Inside, a receptionist barely looked up as Lila signed in under a false name, Dr. Vivian Lake. The air smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee, covering something older. They were led to records, where an administrator waited with professional stiffness. Her tag read Dr. Lorna Wells. Mr. Kincaid, she said, your request surprised us. So did Elias Kane's payments, Lila said evenly. Dr. Wells blinked. I don't follow. Lila opened her coat just enough to show the mycie on her lapel. Then this conversation will clarify some things for both of us. Damon stepped in, voice steady but heavy. We're not here to ruin careers, Doctor. We're here for the truth. Dr. Wells hesitated, then ushered them into a back office and quietly shut the door. She was part of a trial, Wells said. Not by informed consent. Kane's biotech offshoot funded it. They promised breakthrough care for stable patients. Instead, they tracked neural responses under stress. Memory tampering, auditory triggers, induced trauma loops. You tortured her, Lila said, voice shaking. I didn't, Wells whispered. They did. I tried to document what I could. She opened a drawer, pulling out a thick envelope. These are copies I hid. I knew someone would come. I just didn't expect his late wife's housekeeper, she added. Lila didn't flinch. Neither did Damon. Back in the SUV, they tore open the file. Photos, scans, audio logs. One transcript made Lila's skin crawl. Elena's voice, thin and hoarse, repeating, It's not my grief, it's his. Damon's grip tightened on the wheel. She tried to carry my guilt, he said. Thought if she took the weight, I'd survive it. She didn't fail you, Lila replied. You were both hunted. Damon nodded, eyes bright. Then it's my turn to answer. He called Harper. Run Kane's full legal exposure. We go public tonight. Lila looked up sharply. You're sure? She asked. Damon met her eyes. If I don't, I'll never do it. And the people who trusted me, Elena, Eli, you, will never really be safe. At the estate, prep moved at sprint pace. Harper shaped a full expose. Kane's weaponized research, surveillance of grieving families, buried clinical trials, data laundering. Every file they'd gathered, every transcript, every hidden ledger fused into one merciless video report. Lila recorded the opening. I was the maid, she said into the mic. The invisible one. That's why they missed me. But I didn't miss them. I watched them dismantle a woman, bait a child, unravel a broken man. This is what they did, she continued. It's ugly, it's complicated, it's real. Harper hit upload. The internet caught fire. Former St. Halden patients spoke up. Politicians demanded hearings. Global watchdogs opened inquiries into Kane's biotech portfolio. Then the call came. Harper answered, eyes widening. "It's him," she mouthed, putting it on speaker. Kane's voice flowed through, smooth as ever. "You've declared war," he said. "I hope you know how those usually end." "We're rewriting the script," Damon replied. Kane chuckled. "Exposure? Adorable? You can't stop me with views and quotes." "No," Lila cut in. "But you're under a spotlight now, and you can't shoot every witness." Silence stretched. Kane's tone sharpened. "Then I'll begin with your brother." The line clicked dead. Lila froze. Damon didn't. "Harper, lock us down. Ethan, 2 teams to Baltimore. Now." Lila's voice came rough. "He won't touch Marcus." "He won't," Damon said, "because this time we move first." Lila barely paused when the SUV stopped in Baltimore. Rain came down in sheets, soaking the brick building Marcus called home. She sprinted up the familiar stairwell. Apartment 2B's door stood slightly open. Her stomach dropped. "Marcus!" she shouted, shoving it wider. From the kitchen came her brother barefoot, cereal bowl in hand, eyes wide. "Lila, what the—" She crushed him in a hug. "You okay?" she asked, nearly spilling milk. "I'm fine," she said. "You're not safe." Daniel stepped in behind them. "Sir, we need to leave. Now." "Move," Marcus echoed. "Who are you people?" Lila grabbed his shoulders. "I'll explain in the car. Just pack fast. Essentials only. You're staying at the estate." Half an hour later, the SUV pulled away. Marcus sat between Lila and Ethan, glancing between earpieces and holstered weapons. "So," he said slowly, "I always suspected some side hustle, but this is extra." Lila exhaled. "Remember when I took that housekeeping job?" "Yeah, rich people sheets," he said. She nodded. "I saw something and stayed. Stayed for what?" he asked. "Truth," she said. "For people like us who never get a say." Marcus studied her. "You're not just fighting, are you? You're leading this." Lila watched rain snake down glass. "Not on purpose," she said. "But if I stop now, people bleed." Back at the estate, hallways resembled a command center. Whiteboards, secured tablets, agents moving with purpose. "Where is he?" Damon asked. Harper pointed at a map. "Private jet left Teterboro. Destination masked, but pattern triangulates. Bermuda. Too far for a clean grab. Not impossible," she added. "Interpol has a notice out, and global attention means fewer safe havens." Damon turned as Lila walked in with Marcus. "Is he covered?" "For now," Lila said. "But Kane knows he's my weak spot. He'll try again." Damon's expression hardened. "Then we pull the fight to us." That night, Lila stood on the west balcony, watching rain taper to drizzle over the grounds. From here she could see Marcus's silhouette pacing in the guest house window. Another life uprooted by someone else's greed. Damon joined her. "He's got your stubbornness," Damon said. "You mean he's annoying?" she replied. Damon chuckled. "I mean, he doesn't break easy. He's sobered. We traced a new transfer. Big money from Kane to a hired ops fund." "A hit squad?" Lila asked. "Looks like it," Damon said. "We don't know the target. Could be Marcus, Eli, me." Lila's jaw tightened. "So?" Damon handed her a folder. Fake itinerary for a charity gala in Manhattan. "Public appearance," he said. "Entirely fabricated. We leak it. Kane sends someone. We watch, follow, and find his last operational node." Lila scanned the plan. "You're dangling yourself as bait." "Not exactly," he said. "Just my shadow. I'll be nowhere near the venue." Lila nodded slowly. "Then who's the knife?" "You," Damon said. "You and Harper in the control van." Ethan runs point inside. Once Kane's crew shows, we trace them back and cut deep. The following morning, feeds buzzed about Damon Kincaid's upcoming appearance at the Green City Benefit Gala, a completely fictional event. Harper even built a polished website, donation link and guest list included. Within hours, chatter spiked underground. Anonymous accounts tied to Kane's contractors pinged dark web forums. "They're nibbling," Harper said, eyes on scrolling logs. By dusk, a black van circled the fake venue. "Recon," she murmured. 2 armed men dressed as catering staff. "Copy," Ethan said over comms. "Visual confirmed." In the surveillance van, Lila watched multiple angles at once, jaw clenched. "Let them think they're winning," she said quietly. One man slipped through the side entrance, camera picking him up. Inside, hidden cameras and plainclothes agents waited among faux decorations and a rented ice sculpture. Seconds later, Harper's software flashed red. "Got an ID," she said. "It's Rocco." Lila's blood iced. "He lived," she whispered. "Kane patched him up and put him back in circulation," Harper said. "He's unarmed on scan, but that doesn't make him safe." "He never needed a gun to hurt people," Ethan added from inside. Rocco slipped down a hallway just off the fake ballroom, moving like he belonged there. He stopped beneath a crystal chandelier and looked straight into the nearest camera. Lila leaned closer. "He knows," she murmured. Rocco slid an earpiece into place. His voice came through their speakers. "I know this is a setup. Kane told me to walk in anyway." Harper adjusted audio. "He's performing," she said. "He's not here to win. He's here to talk," Lila said. Rocco moved to the ballroom's center. "You got smarter," he told the camera. "Used to mop floors, now you mop corruption." Lila's fingers tightened, but she stayed silent. "Kane doesn't care," Rocco continued. "Never did. I was disposable. So are you." He pulled out a phone, not a weapon, and held the screen up. A bound figure in a chair, head bowed. Marcus. Blood on his lip, chest rising. Lila lurched to her feet. "No," she breathed. "We moved him. We secured him." Harper's fingers flew over keys. "No breach logged," she said. "That feed's delayed footage, not live." "Looks real enough to make you hesitate," Lila whispered. Rocco's voice crackled again. "He's alive, for now. Kane wanted you to know. Says fear slows you." He paused. "But I'm done working for him." Rocco produced a flash drive and placed it on the floor. "Everything I've got, hits, payoffs, targets. I'm finished." "Take him?" Ethan asked softly over comms. Lila exhaled. "Not yet." Rocco looked into the lens again. "He's got another exit," Rocco said. "Always does. But this time he's scared. He's flying out tonight. Private strip near Kingston. Hangar 6, 2 a.m., 1 jet, 1 escort, then he's gone." He raised his hands as Ethan and agents rushed him. Weapons drawn, but unfired. Rocco didn't fight. "Tell her my debt's paid," he said. An hour later, Lila stared down at the new drive's contents. Audio commands from Kane, kill lists, bribe trails, even a photo of Lila ringed in red marker. "I was a target," she murmured. Harper nodded. "You and Marcus both." Damon entered, smelling of jet fuel. "He gave us Kane's exit route," Damon said. Lila nodded. "Kingston, tonight." Damon didn't hesitate. "Mobilize. We finish this." The roar of turbines filled the night as hangar lights glowed in the distance. It was close to 2 a.m. Unmarked SUVs idled beyond the chain-link fence, engines low. Inside, Lila, Damon, and a small federal strike team prepped in the gloom. "We catch him on the ground," Damon said. "He doesn't reach the stairs." Lila checked her weapon again. Ethan studied her. "You sure you're ready for this?" She didn't answer with words, just a nod. The outline of Kane's jet waited behind hangar doors. Intel said Kane was inside, packing, with one aide. A decoy car would roll up. Kane would step out for visual confirmation, like always. When he did, floodlights and agents would box him in. At 2:07 a.m., hangar doors rumbled open. Kane walked out, flanked by a tall man in an overcoat. Older than the glossy photos, slightly worn, arrogance intact. He stepped toward the approaching vehicle. Floodlights snapped on. Federal agents, hands where we can see them. Kane froze as armed officers emerged from shadow. He turned slowly. His gaze found Lila, stepping from the car. No mask, no fear, just resolve. "Told you," she said, voice ice quiet. "You don't get another try." Kane didn't flinch under the lights. He looked like a man who had survived every storm and still expected calm seas. His coat flapped in the wind. Agents shouted commands, guns trained. Kane smiled. "Lila Navarro," he said, almost amused. "Finally got your spotlight." She stepped forward with Damon and 2 officers. "This isn't theater," she said. "It's your last scene." Kane's mouth twitched. "Nice line. Did Kincaid script that for you?" Damon moved up beside her. "She doesn't need prompts to put you in chains." The lead agent read, "Charges, fraud, medical crimes, obstruction, attempted murder." Kane rolled his eyes. "We both know I'll never see a real cell," he drawled. "Keep monologuing," Lila said. "Every word is evidence." As cuffs clicked around his wrists, Kane glanced sideways at her, eyes glittering. "You think this is victory?" he asked. "You bought a headline or two, but this machine was never built for people like you. It feeds on you." Lila leaned closer. "Then I'll start choking it." Back at the estate, aftermath came fast. Footage of Kane in restraints looped nonstop. Vanessa confirmed cooperation. Commentators called it a landmark case for corporate accountability. Lila stayed mostly quiet. Not out of fear, but watchfulness. She knew stories like this never truly ended. 3 days later, she walked down the executive hall toward Damon's office, mind buzzing. Rocco had entered witness protection. St. Halden's files were with federal prosecutors. Elena's name was being cleared. Still, unease coiled inside her. Harper opened Damon's door before Lila could knock. "He asked for you." Inside, Damon sat with a thick folder open. "Just spoke with the U.S. attorney," he said. "They want you in D.C." "Me?" Lila asked. "Your testimony built this case," he replied. "You're the spine. When?" "Next week, but that's not all." He slid the folder toward her. Legal documents, stamped and signed, her name appearing in neat print. "I had the board draft this," Damon said. "Stay, not as staff, as partner. Executive Vice President. Ethics and Oversight." Lila stared. "That can't be real." "It is," he said. "We need someone who refuses to look away." She laughed once, disbelieving. "From folding sheets to folding board votes." Damon smiled. "Has a certain symmetry." She walked to the window. Outside, Eli kicked a soccer ball with Marcus, 2 boys from different worlds, bound by the same war. "I'll think about it," she said. Damon nodded. "That's all I wanted." That night, she walked down to the small, forgotten chapel at the edge of the property. Old wood, cracked pews, colored light through dusty glass. She knelt, finally letting the tension bleed out. Tears came, some for Alina, some for every woman used and discarded, some for the version of herself that had to harden just to survive. When they slowed, she whispered into the quiet, "I'm still here." The silence gave no reply, but something about the stillness felt like it had listened. The next morning, another envelope waited, no stamp, no address. Inside, a photograph, her mother, younger, cradling baby Lila. On the back, in uneven handwriting, "You were always meant for more." Lila pressed it to her chest, then tucked it beside the drive that changed everything. Justice had arrived, but the work wasn't finished. It probably never would be. This story is a reminder. Real justice isn't just verdicts or headlines. It's built quietly, by people like Lila, once invisible, who choose to protect, speak up, and keep watching back. Speak up before the engine turns over. If you've lived long enough to know how fast a normal morning can turn into a headline, you understand this. Danger rarely announces itself. Lila didn't have a title, a badge, or a corner office. She had attention. One quiet warning stopped a bullet before it ever had a chance. For those of us who've raised families, served in uniform, worked hard jobs, and buried friends too soon, the lesson is plain. When something feels off, say it, calmly, clearly, immediately. Silence can be polite, but it can also be fatal. Power depends on people assuming they don't matter. Rocco counted on "you people staying invisible." Cain counted on money and fear doing the talking, and the board counted on comfort. But a system built on intimidation starts to crack the moment one unimportant person refuses to play along. You've seen this in small towns and big cities alike. When one neighbor finally tells the truth, the whole block gets braver. Accountability isn't a speech, it's a chain reaction. Justice is not a moment, it's maintenance. The Catskills server room, the planted transmitters, the hidden medical files. This wasn't one bad actor. It was a machine. And machines don't stop because we want them to. They stop when people keep pressure on, day after day, mile after mile, until the gears grind. Real justice looks less like victory and more like vigilance. At 65 and beyond, you know, the most important work is the work that lasts. Have you ever had a moment where your gut told you something isn't right? And you spoke up? What happened, and what would you tell your younger self today? I'd love to read your story in the comments, because someone else watching may need that courage right now. If this kind of real-life lesson matters to you, about integrity, staying sharp, and protecting the people we love, please hit like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend or family member. What's one sign you've learned to never ignore?